In this demonstration, I'll be showing you how you can do some basic layout using div tags in conjunction with the position property in a CSS style sheet. I've got a finished example right here, so I'll just run through that and I'll show you the code and what will be required to be able to do this. So here is my root folder. I've got my index.html file on the root level, and of course I've got a folder for my images, and if I open that you can see the two images that are in there, and I have made a separate folder also for my CSS file. So everything's nice and clean inside of my root folder. Okay, so let's just click on the page here, and this is the actual web page itself. And there's three elements. There's a box here that I created with a div tag, and I decorated it with some background color and border colors and filled it with a bit of text. And of course positioned it right in this specific location. So the way the position tag works is it just uses the X and Y coordinates based on 0, 0 at the upper left, and you just say X equals whatever, 100 pixels, and Y equals 300 pixels, and it will put the upper left corner of your element at those coordinates. Okay, so I've got three elements being described with CSS to position them where you see them on the page here. So if I right click here, we can access the code, and it's not a whole lot. It's actually quite a little bit. Here's our basic usual suspects, right? I don't think I need to explain too much. You know how to create the HTML framework and the head tags and the body tags, right? And I'll just remind you, the body tags surround what's visible on the screen. And inside of the head tags, we do have our link to our external CSS style sheet, which is right here. Okay, so you will have to create the pathway, right? Link space href equals colon pathway close quote marks, and the two attributes, the relation attribute rel equals style sheet and type equals text / CSS. And that should all fit inside of the head tag. Okay, so the new thing today is the div tag that I'm introducing to you, and each one of these elements are surrounded by div tags as you see here. And each opening div tag, I've also added the attribute ID equals. And it's with these unique names, these IDs, that we are getting our information from our external CSS style sheet to decorate them, and in this case mostly position them on the page. Okay, so what I have as content inside of my div tags are images, at least these two. This first one actually is an H1 tag with some basic text, but we will decorate it with a box creating background color and a border, all in CSS. And this last one here again is just an image. Okay, so if you do need to pause the screen to get this code down, by all means do so, because I'm not going to type it all out. I don't want to waste your time having you watch me type slowly. So pause here if you want to actually just fill in the HTML, but understand, you know, you're going to have to need to create a CSS page as well. So let me go to that CSS page right now. I can click on it here when I'm viewing my code, and maybe I'll make that a bit bigger. And I just have three elements inside of my external CSS style sheet, which again is named last name 06. In this case I called it a.css. It has to end in .css. All right, and it is in a folder called CSS. If I highlight the pathway right there. Okay, so each one is identified of course by a hashtag, and then a unique name that I came up with. So left absolute for the one, middle absolute for the second, and right absolute for the third. And you can see the properties here. The main ones though of course are the top three, and that's what's new for today. It's what's going to allow us to uniquely position them anywhere within our browser window. So we start with position. There are a number of position types, but to cut to the chase for today, it's known as an absolute position, a div tag, and so we rely on the position property called absolute. The value is called absolute. The property is actually position. And we always end with the semicolon. So in this case, I'm putting that first box 50 pixels from the top, 100 pixels from the left. And then I'm defining the box, width and height. And then I'm adding some color inside the box using the background color property. and I'm using the common name lime. And then finally for my border, I'm using a shortcut here. So I can define it with the border property, colon. It defines the width, the style, and the color. And this last one here is also new today. It's the stacking order. If they happen to overlap, this will determine what comes out on top and what goes to the bottom. So it's called the Z-index, and the higher the number, the higher it is in the stack. Okay, so this is 10 right here. All right, so basically the same. These other two are much simpler because we're not drawing a box in them. We're simply stating the location and the stacking order. So again, this middle one, property position, value is called absolute. Then we separate them with a semicolon. Then I define the top and the left and the stacking order with the Z-index. Same thing goes for the third element. Okay, and that's all it takes. And if I go back here to my actual image, that's what defines these particular locations. Okay, I'll go into, I actually have a text editor here on my Mac here. Again, color coded, that's what it looks like. Also, if you want to freeze frame at this point, by all means freeze frame. This is all the CSS that will have to be created, and my index.html file. Here is all the HTML code for that as well. Okay, so again, if you need to pause your video here, by all means, because I'm not going to type this out. And I'll just go back to the root directory here. I'll go out to the Finder here and remind you, this index file is at the root. I did save the CSS file inside of a folder called CSS, and that's why you see this defined right here, CSS/CSS file name. Okay, don't literally copy my name, use the file name that you applied. So before we sign off, let me just demonstrate this in real time here. I'm just going to go in and change some of these numbers. Okay, so this would be for the one on the far right, and maybe I'll push it over another couple of 100 pixels, and I'll push it down maybe 200 pixels as well. So I changed it from 50 to 250 and from 800 to 1000. Let me just save that and then bounce back to my browser, refresh the browser, and there we go. Okay, so if I want to move it around again, I just change those numbers. So put it back to 50, and we'll put it back to 800. Save it. You have to save it, of course. And then refresh my browser, and there we go. Okay, so that's how, again, you control the location within the browser window. Once you're done all of this, just zip up your whole folder. So just take your whole root folder and zip that up and hand that into Canvas. And that's our lesson today on using div tags to establish positions, or more specifically absolute positions, inside of the web browser window.